Welcome to Sustainable Packaging with Cory Connors. Today's episode is really cool. Mr. Eric Norman, who goes by Norm, is the Spec Squad lead and the Spec Data Management Specialist. He's also a partner and senior consultant at Dazmii. How are you, Eric?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for taking time. We met just a few weeks ago at the SpecRite Summit.
Yep.
In Austin, Texas. That was an amazing event. Can you tell me a little bit about your background and kind of where you're from and how you got into this industry?
Sure. Yeah. I'm an MSU Spartan grad about 22 years ago, which is crazy to say. I've been in the packaging industry for all those years in some way, shape, or form. Started out at automotive, did a little industrial, got into food and bev, where I started to find this concept of spec data management and really enjoyed that coupled with the packaging. And I ended up moving back to Michigan. I live in the DeWitt, Michigan, north of Lansing area, so mid-Michigan, go green. And I've always really loved the packaging industry and the data that went along with it. And it kind of drove me to this career choice.
Yeah, that's an amazing area up there. We were talking about before the show started. My friend lived at Port Huron, Michigan, and that's just a beautiful area. Love that state. So I can see why people settle there.
Yeah, I'm a fan. Definitely a fan.
So tell us about the Spec Squad and Spec data management. When we met at SpecRite Summit, I think this was a big question for a lot of people is, how do they get their data of all of their specifications for their packaging and their products into the SpecRite software? And what you do with the Spec Squad is solve that problem, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, we're going through that upcycle, as Matthew has talked about at SpecRite, where we're going from the doc management systems to the data management systems. Yeah. And so it's that transition of getting that information from the document structured into the system. And you can enter all that in yourself at integration or at a point when there's an acquisition. But what we found is, and even in my experience, we have all these technical resources that should be focusing on creating the new products, looking for those cost savings, driving the company. And that data is so important. Yeah, they need to be there too. So it's tough to have, let's say a temp worker do it. You can do it, but you still have to bring the engineering resources in to do a bulk of the review. Yeah. And so what we decided to do is build this service that would bring in people that have been on internships, students that are in the programs that would be managing this data. Because I can recall as a student coming out not understanding how that data was driving the business.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to figure out ways to say, look, here's a technical resource that has, you would potentially bring on anyways to do this type of work. We're doing it at an ad hoc basis for a short period of time at a reasonable cost. And we're teaching the students about your process, your system, your data, and help transition it from that document to that system. And so we can swarm it, right? Something that you might only have 3 resources for, we can now take 20 resources and do it for you, right? And try to help increase that timeline so that or decrease that timeline so you're able to get that work in there faster and start using that system.
So you have a network of students and maybe retired professionals who are from the packaging industry or hoping to go into the packaging industry, and they understand, what an RSC is, what an FOL means, because when you're looking at data in regards to packaging, there's a lot of lingo. There's a lot of 3-letter phrases. And I think you have to have some intrinsic knowledge to understand what those mean while you're entering data, because it very easily could be off. And that's a lot of what SpecRite does, is help you scrub all that data and make sure it's accurate.
Correct. As well as once you're looking at something in mass, being able to find that, using that 5S method to be able to watch those things jump out at you or see those similarities to help reduce redundancies in your system. And those students are able to pick up on that really quick because of that knowledge of what's an FOL, what's an RSC, a die cut, right? Or even just some of the simple conversions of inches to millimeters that they're just now, they know it like the back of their hand because they're touching it all the time. So that's the concept. And you're right. We're embracing that gig movement, right? So students who want to go into the industry, retirees that want to help mentor the students, or maybe just make a little bit of income, whether it be contracting or consulting or mentoring. And then work at home parents as well, that want to stay in the industry. If they've got time and they want to do it, we want to bring them on, help them. And we're focusing on packaging right now, but we're also doing food science, chemical engineering, all the items and all the majors that are going to relate to this upcycle in data management.
That's a really great point. A lot of people assume SpecRite is just about packaging, but SpecRite is all about the product. It can be about the process of how something is put together. I love those videos where they were showing, okay, you're on the line, you've got your iPad, you can see, okay, this is step one, this is step two. We'll flip through these pictures. It's so incredibly helpful. And that's static. That's always there for any employee across the world because of turnover and, retraining and all of these things. Brilliant idea.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So how's the response from the students? Are they excited to be a part of this program, or are you getting a lot of interest?
Yeah, I went in a little bit apprehensive, thinking this might be a step down for them, right? They want to be an engineer. Why would they want to do data entry? Because, we call it digital transformation, but let's be honest, it's a lot of data entry, right? But I was really surprised when I talked to them about it and the interest they had, the questions they had. And I'd seen this trend more interested in the tech associated with it. I'd seen a system in my internship. It was really neat. We did some data entry with it, but then I researched SpecRite and it was really cool. Or I saw SpecRite in the classroom. I want to know more about it. Yep. And so they're really interested in getting into the system and understanding it, knowing it's a stepping stone for hopefully bigger and better things. Yep. But my guess is we might even be able to pull students that work for Dazmii one day, that actually like that side of it, right? Kind of another norm, so to speak, who fell in love with the systems, right?
Yeah. Tell us about Dazmii. What's that focus there?
So Dazmii's, we're focused right now on obviously the spec squad and spec data management. Yep. We also have a packaging, contracting and consulting arm that we offer up services. We do believe that, companies are being strapped more and more to cut headcount, unfortunately, but they still need those resources. So we want to make sure we offer up kind of that full suite. Yeah. Dazmii as a company is a little bit different. So we're trying to embrace the entrepreneur that's a little bit afraid to take a step out. And we want to have them come on as part of the company. And we want to help set them up. So if they liked making chocolate, we're actually working with someone who does pet food or pet treats. This individual loves making pet treats, but they don't know the business side of it so much. We're helping them with the business side. We're letting them have their passion and keep their passion and drive it, but then helping them with that. And it's not like we're trying to make money off of them. We just want to support them. And yeah, we'll take a small administrative fee, but we want to help support them to do the things that they love and build income and their business and have success with it. And we also want to drive back into the community. I tell this story of always wanting to create a brewery called Homeless Hooch, where you actually have homeless people running the brewery, and a lot of the funds go back into alcohol awareness and help. So the thing that's the problem, create that the solution. We're also looking at things like that. So that's Dazmii as a whole, but right now we're just focusing with the kids and helping with spec data management.
That's a great idea. I love that. Homeless Hooch. I'd support that for sure.
Yeah. Thanks.
So yeah, that's really cool. The gig economy is fascinating to me. There are so many millions of people around the world who, they have 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week, and they, could easily sit at their laptop on the couch, enter some specs, and it's very valuable service they are providing because, we don't have enough employees. So really makes sense.
Yeah, and the whole flexibility piece, I can remember as a student, I would get, that study block. And if I could just go do something else for an hour and actually make money doing it, I would have done it in a heartbeat. So why not offer it up to them?
Right. Rather than going to play a video game for an hour, you can go, enter some specs for an hour, learn a little bit while you're making some cash. Brilliant. Love the idea.
Thanks.
So what's going on with you? Anything exciting locally there? Is it snowing?
Yeah, no, we just got done with a huge snowstorm. We dug ourselves out. It's actually starting to warm up. We're just really starting to, we're looking for the warm up so we can, get back on campus and enjoy the sunny weather and hang out with the kids a little bit, make sure that they got what they need and continue to teach them spec management.
Oh, that's awesome. So are you a professor as well?
No, I'm not. That would be awesome.
Okay.
I am
Considering
working
that.
with, yeah, I am working with SpecRite right now on some materials for the universities. Always trying to help out the students, but I've been following an Adam Armstrong's kind of path too. He does a little bit of ad hoc or adjunct work with Cal Poly and would like
Okay.
to work towards that at some point.
Adam Armstrong is really, really smart guy. I've had the honor of talking to him a lot. He's one of the original employees at SpecRite.
Yeah.
And
So funny story. I don't know if there's time for this or not, but
sure.
so when I was an engineer at ConAgra, we had just launched Oracle PLM as our main spec management platform. Our procurement team brought in this new company and their CEO, Matthew Wright, and talking about how we should be looking at this for our packaging specs, this new company called SpecRite. And, we were in the middle and we're actually working with their procurement team on how to like create process so that they're involved in everything. And now all of a sudden they're bringing this in. So to say the least, I was a little bit grumpy. Matthew caught the tail end of that, right? As we were talking about this and he's trying to sell a system. And it was a good system. It was great. It was at that time just focused on packaging. And we were one of the first people he was going after. And I can remember in that meeting saying, it'd be great, but it's not on-prem, this whole cloud thing we don't know about yet.
Right.
It'd be great if you had students that would actually just manage the data, right? But he was still so kind. Like, again, a grumpy Norm. It's still not that bad. A grumpy Norm is a grumpy Norm. And he was kind. And then, fast forward, I think that was about 6 to 10 years ago. And fast forward, and one night, I'm like, hey, I better check out SpecRite, see how they're doing and see how the system's gone. And a bot pops up. So I'm thinking I'm just going to mess with the bot and see what type of technology they're using. Instead, I get a person. The next day, I'm talking to Adam Armstrong, and all of a sudden now we were in a partnership with Spec Squad. So it's been absolutely amazing, and they've been so kind. And Adam's been great. He told me the story about he had gotten hired like right after that meeting to kind of help out. So it's been kind of a cool journey.
I love those stories. They are really growing quickly, and because it's obvious that their services are needed and will be very helpful and necessary in the future. I love the sustainability aspect of what they do, where you can take a product, how it's packaged, and then make some tweaks to it and say, okay, is this more sustainable or less sustainable? And they even break it down to a conversion factor that people can understand. Okay, this would use this many barrels of oil,
Yeah.
and then if you did it this way, it would save this many. And I thought, wow, that's what's been missing from this sustainability idea. How do you measure it? Oh, it's 500 pounds of CO2. What does that mean? Nobody knows what does that mean?
It's light. That's a lot.
I don't know what that means. And I'm studying this, I'm daily. I'm like reading articles and trying to understand it. So to put sustainability into a measure that people can imagine, the number of cars on the road, or something like that. I really like that concept.
Yeah. It's a moving needle, right? As you see, as you continue to look at sustainability, there's another metric or there's another thing, right? What was good before is now considered bad. So we're still learning, which is exciting, right?
Right.
And what's cool is now to say, here's a platform that you can change the rule, but not the data, right? So if it was CO2 today and your data set and you can measure it, and if it was something else tomorrow, if your data's there, it's like this versus this huge event that you now have to go gather again and recalculate. So you're right. Their platform and the things that they're building and what you're able to do with it to help like stay on top of the sustainability stuff is just great.
Yeah. And like you said, it's finite. It's that data is there. It's stagnant, but we can look at it different ways. We can refine it. I'm so excited about it. It's, we talk about it all the time because it's such a great idea.
Yeah.
So what's the future for you guys? You going to continue to grow the gig squad or the spec squad?
Yeah, we know like if with the work that Matthew's doing with SpecRite, the network, we hope to have one day where we're focusing more on the vendors, right, and getting their data set so it's set in the network and it can flow through to the client as best as possible. But we also want to do other things like do some hard sample reviews, right? We know that time is of the essence. What if we got on a subscription basis some of your finished goods? We measure it to make sure it's part of GS, it fits your GS1, it's what's in the system is accurate. Not that a vendor would ever try to, sell you something less, but what if they made a mistake and there's an issue in the field and now it's the material, not the spec, right? Those types of things we're looking, as well as, again, continuing to offer up new ways to help support the packaging industry, whether that be contract packaging or something else. We want to go with as the industry goes and just stay close knit with all the people that we went to school with, we developed with, and then continue to expand the spec squad to other universities, Stout, Clemson, Polytech, and just keep bringing more and more and kind of make this across the US as much as we can.
Yeah, I love that. And shout out to our friend Carson Moe, who were sponsoring Adam and Avelio and I. I wore my UW Stout sweatshirt today to support him. I knew I'd be talking to you. So I'd like to thank Landsberg Aurora for sponsoring this podcast. We really appreciate it. If you're listening, please subscribe and download all the episodes so you have them for when you're on the airplane or wherever you're going. Thank you again, Eric. We really appreciate this.
Oh, I had a great time. Thank you so much.